Come close, my beautiful wenches, and you scum of the sea. I have a tale to tell you, and it's quite a tale. It's about a journey, nigh an adventure. Pull up a mug of grog, and I will tell you this adventure, full of deception and treachery, and I treasure as well. 'Tis not a tale for the faint-hearted, nay, 'tis an adventure across the 7 seas to the 4 corners of the earth. And of course, to old Davy Jones's locker and to treasures in paradise. It's an adventure we all must take at different times in our treacherous lives. Some are driven mad, while others find great treasures. No matter how hard you try, old Jones makes sure he finds ye. So I went sailing once, and things happen to you, alrighty? And I remember trying to swim and get away from, the wreckage. And all of a sudden, something was pulling me down. I didn't know what. Well, it was old Davy trying to find me and lure me into his web of deceit. And what I found was I was on a pirate ship, my own ship actually. And what was nice was my ship had structure, it had rigging, it had routines, it had a daily schedule. It was all well stocked and things like that. And all of us have our ships. And all of us had our careers. Some of us had our prestigious positions, and any position as long as you're working is prestigious as far as I'm concerned, right? Yeah. And of course, we had money coming in, and some of us who were in the military or overseas, we had housing allowances as well. So everything was copacetic, right? The seas were calm, no complaints, right? And then all of a sudden, we have this turbulent economy. And the seas, I've heard about these things from old sailors sitting around in these mugs, drinking. And they would tell me about these phantom waves that would come up out of nowhere and tear the sails apart and reap havoc upon people. And trying to navigate these seas of change were difficult. And sometimes you had these corporate battles going on with different casualties coming in. And occasionally, your ship gets sunk. And I can remember my ship being sunk many times and looking up at the surface, trying to get out. And going down among the many wrecks throughout my career and life. And eventually settling into one, meeting old Davy Jones.
Life is cruel. Why should the afterlife be any different?
Yeah, we all want life to be fair, right? And it isn't. I know people who survived 18 layoffs. One guy had in here 40 years with a company, 200 layoffs he watched before they got him. It gets us all, no matter how hard we try to avoid it. And eventually we will meet old Davy.
You
You feel like a dark abyss. All your deeds laid bare. All your sins banished to pop. I can offer you an escape.
So, there were several times in my life, and I think we all have this, we've been spared total destruction to be an example for others. That there is life after the company, the career, there's different careers. Some of us have had the same career with different companies. Some of us had many different careers. Doesn't matter. But you all are an example to each other because you are survivors. But we also have to look at the need for risk. And you stand at the precipice of the abyss. And no one voluntarily wants to jump in there, except this guy. I don't know, these free divers, I don't know about them. But going down into the depths, I mean, sometimes in the job search, think about it, your emotions are at the surface. And there's times when you beat yourself up or something happens and you go into the depths of the abyss, and you got to pull yourself out. You see, we have to risk going in there. And I don't know of many people who want to go into the abyss, but you got to look at it. And you see your dark side. But you also know that you have to risk meeting your dark side to find out about yourself. But also, the risk needs to be taken because you got to go over the edge. You know, in the old days, they used to say the earth was flat and that people would fall off, you know, the ships would fall off the edge of the earth and these huge sea monsters would be there and gobble them up. Well, I think it was people who'd found treasure told these stories to keep everyone else away from their treasure. I can remember distinctly at the Employment and Training Center we were co-located at, that there were people in there so negative, they said there was no jobs out there. And the economy was kind of like what it is now. DuPage County had 3.4% unemployment. You could walk right up, have your claim taken on Monday morning at 8 o'clock, 8:30, no waiting. But the one or two that were saying that there were no jobs was because they were jerks. That's why there was no jobs. They would go out on interviews and criticize the company. And what was happening was they were spinning this web to gather others into their web of deceit to say there's no jobs out there. And what happens is these distractions, these people that do this, how many times have you heard or read, or maybe it's happened to you, I've heard this many times, people stop one step short of achieving their treasure. You got to persevere through this event. Now, old Davy doesn't let you go through this alone. He makes sure these four people are following you around. Terror. You know, you white knuckle it. Oh my gosh, I got bills to pay, unemployment's running out. Bewilderment. I thought I had a great interview. They said they'll call me back. I was just talking to someone yesterday. They said, oh, I had a great phone interview. They said, hey, no problem, we're going to call you back. And he's waiting. I think he turned into this guy, waiting. The frustration. You submit a resume, you do the tests, the assessments, all this stuff, and they lead you up to the edge, or you sent out all of these resumes online with nothing. And then, of course, hitting despair. You know, you sink down into that abyss. And what happens is when you get in there, you start lowering your expectations. You lose confidence in yourself. You start applying for jobs that are beneath what your level is. And then you start getting overqualified because you have too much experience, or you want too much money, or they assume this for you. And then you sink deeper and deeper, taking vacations from the job search, and it gets prolonged, and things like that. But let's look at some of the great sea captains out there. Blackbeard, Jack Sparrow, you know, when he's sober or whatever, right? Well, first of all, you have to have courage. You have to have courage because every morning you're facing no, the rejection. If anyone's been in sales, you know you hear no a lot. And guess what? You're all salespeople right now. And you have to hear so many no's to get to that yes. I don't like it, didn't like it when I did sales. You don't like it, but it's necessary. And each time you have to brace yourself and steel yourself. Next is self-confidence. Did you know that pirate ship captains were elected by the crew? What's that old saying? It's better to be, I would rather have a lion leading 100 deer than one deer leading 100 lions. But you have to have confidence in yourself. You have to believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, you don't project that confidence when you're talking to your neighbor, when you're talking on the phone, when you're here at job club or any networking group, and especially in the interview. You have to believe in yourself, and you have to do those assessments and identify those skills, those things you're great at. And dominance. Yeah, I know, not all of us want to go in there and be a power player. But dominance can be as easy as walking through that door for an interview with your head up, shoulders back, self-confidence, and to command the room. That's what you have to do. I've had job seekers, some of you have been in my workshops, you know, I talk about some lady who came in for a front desk position, 8:30 in the morning, hair all over the place, head down, no smile, wrinkled dress. Was she dominant? Did she command the room? Or was the interview over within that 1 second? But here's some roles that you play as well. You have to be an explorer. This whole process is exploration for you. You know, you see job ads. You know, I drive down the street, you know, and you can see restaurants hiring, and you can see help wanted signs off 83 in some of these places. Okay, those are the obvious ones. So it may be a machine operator, maybe a server. For some of you, those are great. But for others, you have to go back off the road to find what's hidden. And then also the interview. You know, a lot of you come in expecting to be hired, and that's fine. But you know to ask questions in the interview. And if you don't ask questions, you get burnt. How many of you have had horrible jobs in your career? Okay, I've had several. And you took those jobs probably knowing deep down inside you were walking through the gates of hell, right? But you tried to put it aside and saying you're going to do the best you can. But see, you need to ask questions as well, because you're exploring the company as much as they're exploring you to see if it's going to be a good fit. The company is looking at, are you going to fit in with our crew? Are you going to play well? Do you know how to, hang from the yardarm, not by your neck, alrighty? But you have to see, am I going to be using my skills here? Next one is an artist. Now, do you need to be painting? No. But the artist is the creative part of you, and we are all creative. I know there's a few accountants in here. Cheryl, right? Yeah. Well, I've heard of creative accounting.
Leavenworth is full of those.
Yeah. I think it's our tollway down the road there. I think there's a huge black hole in there where all that money's going, right? But you still have to be creative. When you are confronted with the problem, you have to develop options for yourself. How am I going to get out of this? And one thing I learned in the Army was an estimate of the situation. And I've always learned to come up with 3 courses of action. And usually the last one, or sometimes the first one, is scream and run away. So I have to take that one away and start looking at others. But I also have to evaluate the enemy, the other side, what their courses of actions are. And you have to become creative by jumping to the other side of the desk. And you need to do that in the interview, is see things from the employer's perspective. What are they looking for? What's their need? Why is this position open? What's their pain? So you have to become creative in that aspect. Anyone a project manager in here? Anyone know Murphy? Who wrote a law? Right? By the way, he has a corollary. The cream rises to the top, right? So does the scum. But that's a different presentation, all righty? Now the next role that you have is the judge. So what that means is your ability to evaluate a situation, to evaluate the company, to evaluate your skills, to take a hard look at yourself, your pluses, your minuses, your SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. But also to look at the position in the company and say, hey, this is going to be a good fit, or the hardest thing in the world, nah, this isn't going to be a good fit. And maybe withdraw yourself from the interview process. And where you're sitting right now is hard, extremely hard to do. But if you know it's going to be a bad fit, I don't know, Paul, have you had people tell you, you know what, this isn't going to be a good fit? Paul's my friend, he's a recruiter. You don't want to place someone that's going to wipe out within a week. And the company doesn't want to go through the whole interview process as well. If you think it's going to be a bad gig, say no. They appreciate you for it, and sometimes they've actually, I had a guy interviewing in supply chain for Amazon. In the interview, he knew it wasn't the right job. And he could feel, because there's that sense in the interview, that the interviewer knew it. And the interviewer said, you know what, I don't think this is going to be a good fit. However, there's another position that we have available. You see, had he not gone on the interview and had he not handled himself with class, he wouldn't have found out about that other position. And finally, yes?
What about, for those who say that, just take your job, just as long as you get in there and, once you're in there now you can navigate. What do you say about that?
Well, first you got to get in there. And what I would also say is don't say it in the interview, which has happened to me, because when the HR says, well, we have a 180-day probation period, and once you pass that, then you can apply for any other job in the county. And the person looks at me and says, oh, I can go anywhere else once I get through 6 months. Well, now already I'm thinking, she's gone. Keep it to yourself. But what I want you to think about is you have to get in the company to earn the right to go somewhere else, to prove yourself. Yeah, you can look at what happened to the last person in this company or this position, what opportunities, career paths do they have. This is a term I just found yesterday, upskilling and reskilling in the company. You know, lateral, additional, like adjacent type of positions and skills, and then retraining the current staff as well. So you might want to look at that as how do they train their staff, okay? Sometimes you got to keep the cards close to the chest, alrighty? But don't tell them, Another thing you've heard, I'm sure, where do you want to be in 5 years? And people say, oh, I want your job. What? No. I don't know, do you? Seems like fun, but not everything is as it appears on the surface, okay? You don't know what the company is until you know where the coffee pot is, whether you drink coffee or not, and the snacks, and the kitchen, and where everyone hangs out. You really don't know much about the company. So you want to find that out. You want to prove yourself. There's positions I got here. There's positions I've lost. But this position that I'm in now was created for me. It never existed before. You see, so when you prove yourself, sometimes they create positions. Has anyone ever had a position created for you? Yeah, okay, see? You got to get in there. They're not paying these quarterbacks in the NFL just because they look good in the uniform and not walking on the field, right? They got to earn it on the field. Okay? Does that help? Okay. Whew. Glad I got out of that one. Well, it's true. A lot of times I took jobs, and I admit it, I took jobs because I needed a job. And this is where that intuition, I got rid of the judge. Okay, because I got in desperate mode. And then I ignored warning signs. I sold insurance, I knew it wasn't going to be a good fit. The branch manager's nephew said, Jim, think before you commit. I'm his nephew. I've been out 3 days and he's raking me over the coals. But no. Jim keeps going. How close to the flame can he get? And after a year, I thought I was ready for a heart attack, but my wife here told me a divorce. I thought I was perfect, but that was a surprise, huh? Now, the next one is the warriors, because you got to fight every day. You're combating not only external factors of the employer, things like that, but you're in battle in the most dangerous place in the world, between your two ears, of the craziness that you tell yourself. And why is it that we beat ourselves up and tell ourselves we're worthless because we don't have a job, no one's going to hire me because, all these different things. That's why I encourage you to find your skill set and find your interests. Look for the thread throughout your career, the skills that you've used over and over, because those skills from the past direct you to the future. If you're a numbers person and love cranking out the numbers, to be on the phone in a telecenter, dealing with angry customers all day probably isn't going to be a good fit. And if you love dealing with people on the phone or whatever, you don't want to be sitting there cranking out numbers all day long, data entry. Now, the chains that hold you back. Well, you got to upgrade yourself to current job search techniques. Now, the guy from 40 years ago probably remembers walking in, filling out an application. They gave him a cursory interview and said, "Can you start now?" I think I've noticed this on LinkedIn. Do you see the guy riding the bike and then he jumps onto a ball, does a couple balls, runs across a beam, and does all these different acrobatics? And someone made the comment, "Wow, this is today's interview process. The only thing missing is the flaming hoops and boiling oil." But you got to get updated on this. You know, using your social media, using your networking contacts, because old and new do exist today. Since the beginning of time, it's who you know to get a job. And it's not necessarily sitting on the internet all day long, 24/7, 365, applying to jobs on Indeed, or Career Builder, or Dice. Now, even the guy who wrote What Color's Your Parachute, he once said, or quoted someone, "The internet is the Venus flytrap for the lazy job seeker." Okay? Because you just sit there. You don't have to talk to anyone. You apply all day long. You think you're doing something. A couple years ago in the job club, I had a lady sitting over here. Over 300 applications she submitted online. And it was the Christmas Job Club. And she told us she had just found a job because that Monday of that week, a former coworker had told her about a position in her company. Hand carried the resume in. She went through the interview and was hired in 5 days. 300 online applications waiting. Networking, being known by the companies, by someone in the company, is the #1 way employers find their external hires. The last place they want to look is on the internet. Am I right, Paul? Okay. It's the last place. And think about it. Your competition, when your neighbor or your former coworker hand carries your resume in and says, "Hey, I know somebody," you already are considered for the interview, whether you apply it online or not. They may tell you, go ahead and apply online, but they have carried your resume in, and when they look at the different results, is people who are referred in stand a better chance of getting hired and also stay at the company longer. I think it's Career Crossroads, Career X Crossroads has done studies on this. You know, I had a manager in here, and his direct reports, I think he got hired, the direct report was at Crate and Barrel, and he called his manager and said, "Hey, we got a position available, get me a resume." And because of his former direct report, he told him about the management team, he told him about the interview process, because they sent the manager, "You're going to interview with this person, the vice president, this team." And the direct report, who was in the company, says they must really want you because they never do that for anyone. All based upon a direct report. Which means, so if you have to give referrals to your direct reports and you're laying off people, maybe they can get you a job. It's happened many times here. My neighbor, her boyfriend, years ago, I think, I was talking with him, and he was in warehousing and manufacturing. So a company called him doing a reference for one of his direct reports. So he was talking with HR, the lady in HR, and they had a great conversation and great referral, and the guy got hired, the direct report. So eventually a position became available. The direct report called Doug is his name. Called Doug and said, hey, get me your resume. You have to apply online, but still get me your resume and I'll tell them you're available. Well, the company and the exact same HR person called Doug. What do you think? Because of 6 months to 9 months earlier, because of that conversation, it refreshed her memory about Doug. And now she's interested in getting Doug in the company. You see, you don't know how this all ends up. You don't know who knows who. How many of you know who's sitting next to you and who they know? Heck, I don't even know who I know anymore. Upgrade your job search skills. Plan. Paul, do you still have that video on developing a plan? Yes. Speed up my job search. Okay. Speedupmyjobsearch.com. He has some excellent videos. But the most important one is plan your day. I see a lot of new faces in here, so I'll tell this story. I can remember coming back from Germany when I was in the Army, or even when we got here in my first job searches, where I didn't know what to do. I had already gone through what my plan was. I want to work at these companies. And after I used those, I looked around the kitchen, saw a Pepsi can, said, I think I'll interview at Pepsi. Try there. And then it turned out Pepsi was laying off. I'm reading the business section, Pepsi's laying off, and I go, oh, well, little did I know, there's a lot of Pepsi places around. But I just knew of one, and I automatically ruled myself out. And because I ruled myself out, what am I going to do for the other 7 hours and 59 minutes of the day? Because I had no plan. One of the things I learned in recruiting is the night before, figure out your next day or plan your week. You're going out for dinner with friends. If you haven't seen them in a year or two, what are you doing? You're catching up, right? I remember catching up with some friends over dinner. I said, gosh, I'm interviewing right now. Because they're asking me, well, how's the job? What have you been doing on the job? What new stuff have you implemented? Things like that. I said, whoa, feels like an interview. But you're catching up. But I also don't know who he or she knows. Okay? Softball games. Any extracurricular activities you're at. I was talking with a lady yesterday. I don't know, there's a group that, the kids are in, and it's for musical parents, I guess. I said, well, start there. Because you know those people. They know you. Start in the clubs or the activities that you're already involved in. The emotional stress, like an anchor on your back. Drake Beam and Morum had done a survey of a mass layoff. They told half the group, keep a diary, a journal for yourself, and the other half go do the job search. What they found, and men, I'm not one to keep a journal, so I call it a sketchbook. That I write stuff down like motivational quotes or ideas. They found that the people who were keeping a journal or sketchbook had a better attitude for job search, were getting more interviews and more jobs than the people who weren't. Because of the craziness between your two ears. The craziness also is called rationalize. Hey, I had a good interview today, I'm going to take the rest of the day off. If you break it, I have a friend who always says it's a rational lies that you tell yourself. Avoidance. Woo. I don't want to go to a job club today. I don't want to go to workshops. I mean, whether it's this job club, any other job club, anything like that, I don't want to talk to people. I'm not in the mood to talk to people. I hate people. You know, whatever. You know, you got to talk to people, okay? But you can't avoid the job search, because what happens the longer you avoid it? Drags on and on. What's happening to your skills? Your weapons, your swords, your pistols get rusty, you know, can't fire, your swords become dull. Your skill set. And then people start asking, well, what have you been doing? Right? There's a change in relationships at home. I remember hearing someone present at the job club, and he was talking about this, and he says, when you go home today, I want you to apologize to your spouse, significant other, your kids, and your dog, because you take it out on them. I know I did. Of course, I also wanted to put my foot through the back door in the middle of January when they froze my check, but I was like, well, I could do that, but it is January, it is 0 out, and we need diapers and formula, and my wife would kill me. So I had to weigh those options down. Self-esteem and confidence. If you have low self-esteem and lack of confidence, you're not going to apply for positions. You don't present yourself well on the phone or in person. Again, time structure dovetails with having an effective plan. Has anyone, well, you telecom people have gotten us stuck on this stuff. Have you ever noticed that maybe you're on Facebook or something and a video comes on and you start watching one video, and then next thing you know, you go to a comedian, and then, oh, that was pretty funny, and then another comedian, and there's an ad for some junk, oh, another comedian. Before you know it, an hour's gone. And wait, I was trying to do a job search. Well, what happened? That's an hour of time you can't get back. I think Napoleon once said, I may lose a battle, but I'll never lose a minute. Some of this stuff keeps you from achieving what you want, and you can't get that time back. Again, organizing your, have a structure for yourself, and this could be your resume. Develop a support network for yourself. One of my friends, we used to go jogging. Okay, yeah, I know. I was slowing him down. Or maybe he was slowing me down, you don't know. Actually, it was a halfback. So we'd go jogging in the morning. You know, and sometimes he was depressed and I would pick him up. Other times I was depressed, he would pick me up. But at least we were talking to each other. I have another friend, I ricochet in and out of communication with him. We can be, I think, what is it now, over a year since I've talked with him. Well, we're gonna ricochet back and we'll talk, help each other out with whatever projects we're on, and but I can call him when I'm in need, and he can call me when I'm in need, when he's in need. Look at the resources that are available. You know, we have a list of all the networking groups and job clubs in the area, the job search workshops, anywhere. Look at the resources that you have available to you. And then there's the rejection cycle. It just goes round and around and around, you know. And I've already talked about this. You know, you're online, you get no response, or all the insurance companies are calling you because you're on Monster or Career Builder, because they're looking for managers and trainers, but they're really looking for agents. Or some of these positions are straight commission only, and you have to buy $200 worth of knives before you even start, you know, whatever. You tell I've been there? Except I didn't buy the knives. Okay. So you have these thieves and saboteurs. Now, thieves of resources, not only do your skills weaken, but your gold, your treasury. The longer you're laid off, you know, I've talked to people, it's happened to me, you know, The plastic is already melted. You're thinking about tapping into the 401k, or maybe you've exhausted that, things like that. That's what's happening, and these are the thieves of your resources. Over there, you're standing there trying to be tall, have a proud face the wind. You're facing to the wind of the job search, and then behind you have toxic people. You know, you don't have a job. You can drive me to the airport, or you can paint the house or whatever, right? You have the internal battles in your head. And then time. Time is distorted. When you first get laid off, you think, oh, I got 6 months of unemployment. That's a long time. Until 5.5 months. And then you're looking back, you go, wow, what happened to time? Or you're on the internet and you sit down, you think, okay, I'm going to apply for a job today. Before you know it, an hour or two's gone by, and you're watching a Kardashian video or something, and like, wow. And then it seems so slow when you're in the desert, nothing's happening, right? Gosh, will anyone ever call me? Will I ever get an interview? And then it happens fast. All of a sudden, it's like, and someone, he was off 4 years. 4 years. And I saw him at Jewel, and he comes up to me, and I said, and how are you? And he says, I got a job. He says, you're not going to believe this. He's about 4 years. He's doing some part-time gigs and helping run a job club. So he goes, I saw something on Career Builder because I have alerts. And I said, hey, what the heck? I've applied 1 million times somewhere else, but I'll try it. It was a company in town. They called him up, called him in the next day for an interview, and then he got hired. He says, I was afraid to negotiate because, after 4 years. But anyway, he says, I got a job doing what I love to do. 3-day process. I said, think about it. You have 4 years to get to those 3 days. But he got to those 3 days, and he persevered through it. Now, you're all captains of your ship. You need to do an inventory of your supplies. What's your ship's condition? What are the capabilities? This is where SWOT comes in. Your strengths, your weaknesses, what opportunities are out there, and what are threats. Are your skills updated? Are they obsolete? What's happening in your industry? How many of you know what your top 10 skills are? Has anyone taken the time to figure that out? Well, I can tell by everyone's nodding head, or lack thereof, you haven't done that. That would be a good idea to do. Work through what color's my parachute. Great exercise. If you need help doing that, find a job search buddy. Okay? You can hold each other accountable and just say, work through the exercises. Now, when you lose your job, you've been marooned, and that's usually if they haven't keel-hauled you for whatever reason. And what that is they tie 2 ropes to your ankles and arms and drag you along the hull of the boat where all these barnacles are. So I'm assuming that they did it the nice way, pulled up on shore, kicked you out of the boat, maybe you got a severance. And there's other remnants of people who've been marooned before. One of the things is developing focus. I'll do anything, anywhere. That was my motto. Because in the Army, as an officer, I was trained to do anything, anywhere. I was in tanks one day, the next day I got a mortar platoon, basic training company. You learn it, you do it. But see, in the civilian world, I'm sure I was a project manager many times, so I can run a project, but they say, you don't have relevant experience to our industry. You don't have your PMP, right? Many times you're dazed and confused. You've been laid off. It's like a slap upside the head. You're disoriented. You can't figure out what's going on. You have no structure. And so you're all over the place. Chasing, it's like I was talking with someone yesterday reviewing a resume. Rather than doing the shotgun blast, hoping to hit something, she's trying to do the sniper where she is targeting specific companies, which is good, and researching the companies and trying to figure out people there. It's better to be a sniper than a machine gunner, hoping to hit someone. We've talked about courage, consistency. Take action every day. Be consistent. Persistency as well. One lady took her 3 times, this was 2 months ago, to follow up with the company. It was Carroll Stream, the village of Carroll Stream, before they hired her. That was after the interview. She followed up with phone calls. Another guy I was telling the workshop the other day, people are afraid to pick up the phone and call someone. And, he had a good interview. They said, we're going to check your references. He sent the references. But he hadn't heard anything for a week and a half, so he called the HR person. They said, we haven't got your references. He says, well, I sent them. God knows there's someone in spam. And so he sent them again, made sure they got them, and then he was hired. Had he not, he would never have gotten that position because they would have figured he had lack of interest. So you got to be persistent. Perseverance, okay? Half marathon is 13.1, full marathon 26.2. The job search is how long? It's the old penguin salute, right? You know what that is? I don't know, Until I get a job, right? It's hard to predict. So it's how do you pace yourself? And this is also, take some action, take care of yourself as well. Whether it's a motivational tape, music, books, going for a walk, whatever. But you got to persevere through this process. Reskill, that's what we're here for. Certification training, job search training, and resiliency. I remember telling someone, just because there's a lot of new people in here, I think I went through 7 job searches, 3 or 4 career changes. I worked for the unemployment office during a recession. I was laid off 4 or 5 times. I lost count because it was so many times. Now, who gets laid off from the unemployment office during a recession? Jim Fergle does, all right? Well, that's because I didn't listen. Because I didn't understand what an intermittent employee was. Intermittent means you only work so many hours. This is something like 1,000, 1,200 hours. Well, I thought that was a lot of hours. What do I care? I got a job. Well, there's budgets, and you can only work so many hours. You're laid off. And then you start your job search getting going, and all of a sudden, they call you. Well, now if I turn down the unemployment office for a job, what happens? Where's your check? Okay. So you got to go back. So I was telling someone, an corporate HR person this, and he says, well, I'll say one thing about you, you're resilient. I said, resilient? I feel like I'm in a whirlpool from hell. And he goes, no, you keep bouncing back. See, I didn't see it, because all I was inside my head. Swirling around with those demons and gnomes. Does this sound familiar? But these are skills you need on the when you're shipwrecked. Now, one of the things I've run across, and Richard Bowles put it in his book for career counselors, is that you have 2 sides of the head, right? Left brain, right brain. So the left brain is the safekeeping self. You want structure. You want the status quo. If my company would just call me back, everything would be fine, right? If they weren't jerks, if they would just call me back. If I would just have a plan. I got up every morning at this time, and now I'm all thrown out of whack and things like that. I'm out of control. Oh, okay. So the left side of the brain wants that structure. That's the safekeeping self, which also means I can't call anyone because they say I can't. Well, who's they? Okay, I have to apply online all the time. All the jobs are online. Well, that's the safekeeping self. Now, the experimental self, that's the right brain, all you lefties, right? That's the creative side. That says, well, maybe I will step on the lawn and not get caught, right? Or maybe I'll reach out to someone I haven't met that I found on LinkedIn and see if they can help me or give me some information about the company. Because that's getting outside of our boundaries. And we have a tendency to become what? Complacent and stay within our safe zones. Has anyone ever heard of someday I'll? Yeah, we've been there. Someday I'm going to do this. Someday I'm going to do that. And that someday never comes. So you got to be careful of getting caught on and deserted or shipwrecked or marooned on this island. We've all been there, we've all said it. How do you prevent that? And this is a tough one. You can plan, you can research. 6 letters. Action. And there's a lot of time. I'm great at planning. I'm great at researching. But that first step, where they say a journey of 1,000 miles starts with 1 step, it's the same for us. Taking that 1 step, and it's the hardest step. And this is the other one. Magic is going to solve my problems. I signed up with this agency. This recruiter is going to find me a job. Sorry, Paul. If everyone in here went to Paul and Paul said, okay, thank you for your resumes, all of you expect Paul to find you a job. Can you find jobs for all these people? There's so many different occupations in here and backgrounds. Plus, I'm guessing there's 35 to 40 people. Do you have the time for that? You know, usually with recruiters, they're going to put you in a database. And when something comes up that matches your background, then you're going to come up. But just because I called Paul, Paul's going to find me a job. That means I don't do any more job search because I have put Paul on this pedestal in the sky with the sunbeam coming down upon him and angels singing that he is my new God and he's going to find me a job and I'm going to be waiting a long time. The only person who's going to find you a job or the next position that has a vested interest in you finding that is you. Now, if you match what's on Paul's desk right now, he has a vested interest in you, I would think. Because he's that agent in between the company and you. But if you don't match, he's going to put you on the side. At least that's what I did when I was recruiting. I keep a file of people who are marketable and stuff. You know, when something comes up, I'm going to call this person. So you can talk to many recruiters, you can be with many agencies, but the best thing is don't rely on anyone else, rely on yourself. Okay, so I'm passing around Captain Mad Dog Fergle's articles of the job search, which summarizes everything that I'm talking about today. Probably the one thing you don't have now is control, and you're trying to control all these things here. The economy, networking, the rules of 3, Murphy's Law, you know, the refrigerator, the dryer, and the gas or something. You can't control the length of job search, just taking action. You like to control the interviewers, not always. And we'd like to control the hiring decisions, but that's beyond your grasp. All you can do is show up and do the best you possibly can. Only you can prevent forest fires. No, only you can control your own thoughts, words, and deeds. So the map, I actually found this in a book. we all are looking for our treasure. But we all have different, we might even have the same map, but we're looking for different treasure. And there's no X on this map because all of you are looking for your own treasure.
Did you tweak this like this? With the words?
No.
It was like that?
Yeah, it was like this. So you have the countries of spring, summer, winter, and fall. And then you go into the frozen wastelands, which sometimes I feel like I'm in. And you have desolation, and there's a whole book that goes along with this that talks about all these different emotions that you go through. So that's the land you're trying to navigate while you're trying to find a new position. When you're looking at yourself, there's a thing called career anchors. You can Google career anchors. Guy's name is Edgar Sheen. And these are more important than money, is what he says when he's done his studies. But one of these means more to us than anything else. Now, some people are technical and functional competence. You know, if you're the best printer, if you're the best administrative assistant, that's what you want to be. But then for some reason they want to promote you into management. And you're seeing this, especially in IT, where they have level 1, 2, 3, rather than making you a manager, you have different tracks that you can go into. So technical competence. The other one is general managerial competence. This is where you're going all over the company, maybe all over the country or the world. You know, you might start out in sales or do marketing and then HR and accounting, work at a couple plants, and you're being groomed for somewhere high up in the clouds of the administration. Maybe autonomy and independence is what you're looking for. Okay? You know, I don't like to be micromanaged. You know, so I want some autonomy and independence. On the other hand, if you like to be micromanaged, giving you a fog-like, be prepared to do this is going to drive you crazy. You know, so you have to know what works for you. A lot of us like security and stability. You know, we always think of teachers or professors, and now what's happening at the universities are all adjuncts. And then don't drive downtown today. I think they're going to be blocking traffic. But there's really nothing. You know, now all the unions are crying for people because they, you know, told them all back during the recession, you will never work again. You're number 3,000 on the list. So a lot of people quit the unions to get other jobs, and now those who are left are getting old and getting ready to retire. Maybe, you know, entrepreneurial creativity. You like to start things. It doesn't mean you have to start a new company. Sometimes you're one of those people who likes to come up with an idea and implement a new idea at work. Or, you know what, we need someone who's going to, we're going to create a whole new department, and we want someone to go through the whole, wow, Christine, that whole building that you had. I'd say you had to be creative and entrepreneurial with sitting there on a orange crate with one you know, light bulb hanging in maybe a telephone and no paper and pen, right? Service or dedication to a cause. You know, social arena. Dedication to cause is like something greater than yourself. Some people are drawn to that. Pure challenge. Yeah, I know salespeople who love crawling on that razor's edge of commission only. Alrighty? And then the lifestyle. Maybe balance is in there. You know, I've had project managers come in 70, 80 hours, 24/7, 365, talking on 3 continents, Europe, the States, and China or India. No sleep. You know, maybe now I want to be with my family. Ports of call, job clubs. You gotta be careful of who you associate with. Associate with motivated people, not the people I was telling you about earlier, the crazy ones. There's no jobs out there. Help other people out. You know, the networking groups, job clubs are you know, it does become all about you, right? We all want jobs. But maybe I can share a job lead with Gary, and maybe 6 months from now, after he gets a job, he says, Jim, I'm looking for someone just like you. So when you're stuck in port, or you're in port, what's the old saying? A ship is safe in port, but that's not what the ship is built for. Okay? You need to take some risk. You can't cross the sea by standing and staring at the water. I saw that in Menards. In their advertisement every Sunday, they have motivational quotes at the bottom of the page. So I saw that and I said, well, that's pretty true. We all stand there, but we don't want to cross the water. Now, as you know, some of you have walked the plank many times at your companies, and we don't like it, but it also leads to new adventures. And I thought this one was cool. The world, unfortunately, rarely matches our hopes and consistently refuses to behave in a reasonable manner, right? If it would just do things my way, life would be great. Look at all the different possibilities that are out there. Don't just focus on corporate. Some of you, you know, the gig economy now for freelance, nonprofits. We have the nonprofit recruiter in here. They need administrative assistance. They need IT. Volunteer. Keep your skills up to speed. Help others. Starting your own company, the military, if you're young enough, or there's a huge civilian workforce that works for the military. Government. Look in the town you live. There's townships, there's counties. County has a lot of jobs available right now. State has jobs. Just had a guy about 2-3 months ago. He was 67, he wasn't motivated. He attended a workshop because he didn't think he was going to get hired at 67 on how to find state jobs. And he got hired by the state. He had been a bank examiner. Well, he's hired by the Secretary of State to audit, you know, whatever accounts or employers or something. And education, gosh, IT is in the schools now. You can be counselors. So you have to look at what's on the horizon. Alrighty? And this is important for the job search because I want you to think about this. The voyage of discovery is not about seeing new landscapes, it's about seeing with new eyes. So when I'm driving, I try to look to the left and right, and my wife is hanging on for dear life and screaming, Jim, the lights, okay? Now, when she's driving, I'm hanging on. Not really. I actually am looking at the landscape and saying, wow, I never noticed that before, right? Same landscape, same route, but now I'm taking time and seeing things from a different perspective. So that's what I want to look at. Now, I'm not going to get into politics. I'm just saying this was in Cranes this week. And you have a copy of this. This, I've always heard, follow the money. Now, I don't know what money's in Illinois, but we have to follow the money. But Governor Pritzker has put up, this is what he's looking at. And these are the areas. Agriculture and agricultural tech. ADM is one of the biggest, the world's biggest agricultural players. There's a lot of food industry around. Energy sector, they're trying to build that up. Information technology. He was very big in startups, and he's trying to fund more of those. Life science and healthcare. We should be at the forefront of that, but the problem is science and labs. And then also we should be the biotech hub with everyone, and they're looking at doing that. Manufacturing, transportation and logistics. Elk Grove Village is the largest industrial park in the United States, and DuPage County is in the top 10 manufacturing counties in the United States. And of course, small business. So, Now we're going to look where no one has looked before, and that's in the deep end of the pool. So in here, small but fast-growing ventures are becoming a lifeline. What's happening is small companies can't afford River North, so they're moving to the Loop. Now, I think you have the article in there. But anyway, they mention here these companies are on hiring binges like Snapsheet, Active Campaign, Sport Hero, and Review Trackers. What I'm trying to show you is here are job ads without being on Career Builder or anywhere else. If you read Cranes in the Business Ledger, you are going to find companies that are hiring before anyone else will find it. This one, Horizon, this Wahlberg company is planning to add 100 employees. I think they're looking at developers and engineers, I believe. This one here, PerkSpot, plans to reach 125 employees by the end of next year. So types of ships, types of companies. Now the Business Ledger, which you can subscribe to, go to your library, you can get it online. They interview CEOs, presidents of small companies. This was in June. This guy Sanjay Shah, his company is Vistex. Tells you what they do, what they provide, software services, and they've been asking these people over the last 3 years, do you plan to hire any individual staff? We plan to hire over 100 additional staff and increase investment in R&D, including AI and machine learning. So if this is your bailiwick, you don't need a job ad, do you? You could write a letter to this guy. You can contact, you could reach out. I say old school, make a copy of this, send it in, say, hey, I was reading the Business Ledger, a nice article in Coffee Break. I see you're looking for people with an R&D background, especially AI and machine learning. I'd like to talk with you about how to help you get there. Because no one else is going to do that. They're all waiting for those jobs to open up on the internet. You want to be where there's no competition. This guy here, now I know it's up in Milwaukee area, but what I found interesting, because it's accounting and business, we need associates with a wide range of educational backgrounds and professional experience. We are continuing to hire not only accounting graduates, but also associates with alternative degrees. So just because it says accounting, they're hiring other people because the businesses have other departments other than accounting. This company, a couple of weeks ago, Business Ledger, 10-9. They're moving their headquarters from Pennsylvania to Hamilton Lakes in Itasca. And they're looking for engineering, product development, marketing, okay? So, what crew positions do they have available? Well, look at here, Itasca, where they're moving, senior project engineer. If you're in HR, right? Because if they're moving here, they're gonna have to, not everyone, some of you have had the option. We're moving to Ohio, you're moving to California, Texas. Do you wanna move or stay here? It's the same thing in Pennsylvania, so they're gonna have to hire people here. And that's just, as soon as I read that article, I went right to their website to see what they're hiring for. It's tough to negotiate when you're begging for a job, all righty? And I've told a lot of you, you know, when you're begging for a job, you have no power. You have to, as this one executive recruiter told the group, Job Club once, get off your knees. Do not beg for a job. You have to look at what is your benefit to the employer. And it's called negotiating from strength. There's only two things employers care about. I have a problem that needs to be solved, and I need to be making money. I don't care if you work for the government, we have an ROI. I pray that all of you have jobs next year so I don't see you for whatever I'm doing for Halloween. But I also need you to tell us that you got a job, the salary and things like that, because we have to report back to Congress to keep this program going. You are here now because of the people who got hired ahead of you. That's our ROI. Education, what is it? How many students graduate, and are hired by prestigious corporations, things like that? Or how many alumni are actively involved? Life's a game of cards. You got to look at the hand that is dealt to you right now. I'd like 4 aces, right? I had 5 once, but I barely escaped with my life. Anyway. But I mean, you got to be reliable. The king is the industry, and it's your industry, how much you work. Being polite to people. I know you get angry. Okay, I know you're angry at the process. I know you can get turned down, but you can, if they turn you down for a job, you can gracefully send them a nice email thank you letter. I appreciate the time you spent interviewing. I was really impressed with your company. It's unfortunate you chose someone else. However, please keep me in mind for some other position. I've had several people get jobs because of that. You find the treasure, right? It's right here. That's the treasure. Now, what did Jack Sparrow say in Pirates of the Caribbean? All that glitters is not gold. What are all of you focused on when you're looking for a job? Salary. There's benefits, right? There's also, maybe you're looking at your career anchor. Maybe you are looking for dedication to a cause. Maybe you want to start your own company. We all have different treasures that we seek, but we all get hung up on salary. Yes, you need a minimum salary and things like that. Maybe they don't budge on salary. Maybe they change the job title. Maybe they can throw in an extra week of vacation. Maybe you have a company car. Maybe you have business expenses. Maybe they have a gym or pay half the membership at a gym. How about overtime? I think you want to find that out, right? A few of us just get together on Saturdays to catch up on paperwork. That was told to me in insurance. So I didn't show up on Saturday, my first Saturday. Guess what? I get a call at 9 o'clock. Where are you? Said it was optional. No. Yeah. So.
I think the crew, meaning me as well, were expecting something a bit more shiny.
Right? That's what we look for. Okay? The key to riches is self-discipline in this process here. Taking action every day. Exploring the company as much as they're exploring you. And being in control of your mind. It doesn't help you to scream at the interviewer. I've had some bizarre stuff like that happen. Okay? Don't let your desperation show through. You are also going to be transformed by this whole process. Okay? And what I found is this little guy follows me around with this little box of gold. And what I found was those are my skill sets that I always overlook. These are the things that interest me, things that I'm great at. But when I'm in depressed mode or anything like that, I overlook them. But through this process, you are going to discover you. The good, the bad, the ugly. But you also look at your strengths and how you can contribute. You see, because then you're going to be master of your own destiny. I remember I was laid off so many times, I was going through another reorg here. And I eventually said to myself, we're losing half our staff, we had an interview against each other. I said, well, If they don't hire me here, I'm going to take my skills and talents somewhere else that will appreciate them. I finally came to that point. I think it was going to be my 8th layoff in as many years. Did you have to talk me down off a ledge? Probably. Yes. Yeah. But eventually, this whole dream ends. You know, you want to come back to the surface, right? Get out of this. And you find yourself back on another boat again, right? And as the Romans say, if you wish for peace, prepare for war. Because there you are. It can happen again. Is it normal? Okay. So anyway, have a happy Halloween. Okay. Questions? Yes.
As you said, you know that don't associate yourself with the people who are depressed. But the thing is, you get turned down due to your age. You're competing with a 30-year-old. How would you keep yourself motivated?
Well, I go with we're Renaissance workers, okay? And what type of companies are you going with? You see, the other thing I've learned, yes, ages, but you also have, you could be too old and you could be too young as well. What do you have to offer a company? Now, if you go to some of these bigger companies, you are competing with younger people. But if you go to small and medium-sized companies, they want someone who can start now. And I also recommend you read Fast Company, Inc., Fortune, as well as the Business Ledger and Cranes, because I have found, because I read for employers, there's some employer, it's an IT company, they do not hire people with degrees. They would rather take experience over the degree. Because I mean, think about it, by the time you have a 4-year MIS degree or something, 3/4 of it is obsolete, right? So if you don't have a certification, what do you have? Hands-on, you have experience, okay? Now, if they're ruling you out for certification, but you can do it, 3 F's. Feel, felt, found. I understand how you feel. You know, yes, I don't have the certification. My previous manager felt the same way. And what he or she found was that due to my experience, I was able to jump in and adapt to different technologies, pick them up, and wind up training the rest of the company. How's that? Yes?
The answer to his question is, I don't have experience in certain IT stuff or whatever, but I turned around and faced him and said, I've learned this. Your experience is based on, I have learned this in the ERP system within 3 months and achieved your goals going forward. That's what you're after. You're telling him that, great, you don't have the knowledge, but I've done this, and I've turned it around to make sure that I can succeed in your company.
Thank you.
Of course it's hard, you know? I hate, you know, when I apply at a company that interests me, the first thing they say is, well, you're going to be bored. Well, why did I apply? You know, and you want to fight with them. But when you fight with someone, they become entrenched in their position. And that's why, you know, if you read Zig Ziglar, Tom Hopkins, any sales book, they say agree with the objection. And that's where you go back to the feel, felt, found. Understand how you feel. You know where I heard about that, other from Zig Ziglar and Tom Hopkins? I've had the top sales reps, national sales reps from Comcast come in here. And when I put that up on the board, they say, oh, that's how we were trained to overcome objections when we're trying to sell cable or DirecTV or whatever. And if it's good enough for Comcast, I feel it's good enough for us, right? Yes?
When you're applying online and you do not have a college degree, obviously it's scanned, and when they look for that, I mean, it could be in baking, you know, and it's not relevant to the job, but they want that degree. How do you overcome that?
Be like water. Sun Tzu's Art of War says when you hit an obstacle, you be like water. Are there any straight streams or rivers? They go around. An example. A lady was trying to apply online. She was a risk manager. Required a master's. So through networking, someone referred her to, we'll just say a guy called John. He never met her. We'll say Sue. John never met Sue. But John knew people in different industries and referred her to 3 people, one of which was Jim. And John called Jim and says, you know, I think you might want to talk with Sue. She's a risk manager. I think you need to talk with her. He would call Sue and say, have you followed up with all these 3 of these people? So Jim calls Sue in, based on this other guy, John's recommendation. They're going through the requirements. Well, she has 17 years experience, no master's. The guy says, I could care less about the degree. You got 17 years experience. That's what I want. Threw that out the window and hired her. You have to understand that the application process is not to get you in. It's an elimination process to weed you out. Listen to ZipRecruiter. Listen to the ads for ZipRecruiter and Indeed on the radio. You think it's directed towards you as a job seeker? It's actually directed towards human resources and hiring managers on how we can make your life easier by screening out, by asking these questions and eliminating these candidates that don't relate. So they're screening you out. You just heard, well, Indeed's looking for candidates. No, they're not. Go around. That's why networking, and if you hate the word networking like I do, making connections. Talking to people. Even if you hate people, you still need to talk to them, okay? But that, and I'm giving you a real world experience because another lady, by her house was a company she wanted to work for, required a bachelor's degree. That was in the ad. But she stopped by because one of her friends works there. She talks to HR. HR says, oh, you know, Sue, you know what? And you live right down the street. You don't need a bachelor's. You got all this other experience. You see, when you're face to face, it's harder to say no. Why do you always get rejections by email and telephone? Yeah, it's so easy. Why do you hang up on telemarketers? Why do you even answer the phone now when you see an unknown number on your TV set, you know? But it's the same thing. Once you make a personal connection, it's harder to say no, and you get to talk about yourself. What do you say, Paul? Slowest way to find a job is online?
Not online, but yeah.
Yeah? Do everything else before you hit the apply. Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
If I do get a call saying that, hey, you know, your resume was great and everything, we decided to go another direction, go with someone else, is it okay for me to ask, why was I not offered a position?
They may or may not tell you because of legalities. You know, because you know, they don't want any lawsuits. Some people will tell you, most will not. Let's go back to the thank you for the rejection.
Right.
I'll just say, you know, I hope that I presented myself well. I'm really interested in this company. Is there any other, oh, here's what you do. There's a guy who was 6 figures came through here. When he got turned down for a position, this is the statement he would use. I understand I may be overqualified. I understand you may have went in a different direction. Where else in the company do you think they could use my talents and skills? And he was generating a lot of 2nd and 3rd interviews that way. He had 10 interviews in a week by saying that statement. Okay, well, that's enough for the show. I'm going to tap dance my way out of here.